Hello and welcome to Data Conversations over coffee with myself, Craig Stewart. Today I've got a guest with me who has recently moved to Perth, Western Australia, but we met quite a few years ago actually in Dubai at various roundtables and functions that I hosted there with the data analytics community. Harjot Singh, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. Good to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm good, Craig. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank
Yeah,
you.
nice to see you again. Yeah, virtually.
Likewise. I mean, I think that's one of the great things is that we can have these conversations across the world. I mean, I had a
The globe.
conversation
Yeah.
with one of our top guys in South Africa. This evening, I'm speaking to someone in California. I did one last week with Jawad, who is in Pakistan, and I've got some coming up in the UK now. Obviously, what is effectively a home game for me. I'm Australian. I lived there for a long time. My kids are Australian. My wife's Australian. So a little bit of a homecoming for me. I've got family, like most South Africans, in Perth.
Mhm.
So how are you finding Australia?
It's not bad. It was just that when we were landing at the airport, the pilot announced that it's 15 degrees and we were coming from 45 degrees. So
Yeah,
in Dubai. And then what I heard that in Dubai it was touching 49 degrees and here it is getting a bit colder.
yeah,
So yeah, it's a weather transformation, and moreover, it's kind of a complete transformation as Dubai is a complete different city as compared to Australia and Perth. So it's a bit of you can say, well, I'm not stranger to Australia because I lived in Sydney for about 7 years, and
yeah,
of course, and then now this time it's in Perth. But I'm enjoying. I mean, the weather is getting better day by day, and then you don't miss the sultry heat that you had in the Middle East.
yeah,
But other than that, the role profile is pretty much the same. That whatever I was doing over there, it's pretty much the same here. So
yeah. Yeah, it's
no
interesting.
change
You've
in
kind of
that.
gone from the hub of travel in the Middle East to one of the most isolated capital cities in the world. I mean, I don't know, many people know this, but Perth is closer to Singapore than any other Australian state capital city, which is
And true, Perth is actually sitting in the Singapore time zone as well.
yeah,
So our time zone is exactly as same as Singapore and Malaysia.
yeah,
And then probably it takes us about 4 to 5 hours to fly to Eastern Coast, and the similar times is
yeah.
for from Perth to Singapore.
Yeah, absolutely. A great country. I do miss it. But let's move on. Otherwise, I could reminisce for hours about my time in Sydney as well. So, Harjot, you've recently joined RAC, the Western Australian part of the business, as the Chief Data Officer. Maybe you can give everybody, just by way of introduction, a little bit of insight into your journey in data, obviously having been in the Middle East, in the finance environment, and now as a chief data officer at RAC.
Um, See, my journey is basically is all about data. So whichever place or whichever industry I sit in, and I come from cross industries. Right now, it's an insurance company. In Dubai, it was a finance and BFC, and then an airline. And before that, it was public sector, transport, telecom, and all those sectors. And what I realize is that, as everybody knows, that the data is core part, and almost all the industries they are struggling with the common data issues, which is around data quality, data lineage, and most importantly, the operationalization and monetization of the data.
Mm,
Some industries are a bit ahead, and some industries are a bit behind. So that's fine. So existing role is about driving the data-driven culture in the organization in RSC. But the good thing is that RSC is quite aware about the need and then the importance of the data-driven culture. Whereas in UAE, previous company was good, and then previous to that, we had to try to embed the culture in that. So people think that data is all about putting a data platform in the cloud, and then here we go. But it's more about the cultural transformation, and how do you know use data to drive your business strategy. So that to me is a data-driven culture, rather than everybody says that, oh, we use data in our financial reports, we use data in our balance sheets and all that. But is data influencing your financials or is your business strategy? Until you reach at that level, you can't be a data driven organization. So you have to move progress towards that. It's not an overnight transformation, it's a journey. It's a journey that you have to start somewhere sometime, and then you will reach the level ultimately where you can say, yes, we are truly data driven. Our executives look at the data and then they decide that what is our business goal to be, because we got the data in front of us, and how do we reach that level. So that's the critical part of the data driven organization.
I want to come back to that sort of understanding of being data driven, but I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your role as the chief data officer at RAC. Is this the first chief data officer the organization
Yes,
has had?
yes,
Okay.
it's the inaugural role. Yes, it's the
Yeah.
inaugural role, and in fact, the role was the business case was put up in last year sometime, and then role was advertised, and then I think my joining got delayed because of COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, this is the inaugural chief data role in the organization. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it, kind of get to that point, I think organizations where they put in a chief data officer, they not to say if a company doesn't have a title chief data officer, they're not taking their data seriously. But as it kind of got to that point with RAC that they want a chief data officer that's got a really strong mandate at board level or interacts with the board to really drive that data transformation across the organization.
See, I think the mandate is really important. As you say, that if somebody doesn't have a CDO role, then probably they are not taking the journey that seriously. So I have seen the companies advertising the role at manager or senior manager level and then moving towards the head of level and then probably VP and all that. And then what I realize is that they are not really serious about that. As you said, that CXO role interacts with the board. And to tell you the truth, CEO's role is to look at the PNL, and then the board's role is to look at the balance sheet. So the ultimate aim is that how do you bring the data into the balance sheet? So how do you, put a value on the data and as make it as a part of balance sheet? And this is the board level role. And then with the CXO title, if you have access to the board, so you can really drive that mandate. Without that, it's basically, yes, you can do the journey, but you never know that how much mandate you have. As I said, that if you have a senior manager or a head of role, sure, your role mainly fixes on building a data platform, providing the reporting, but you can't really embed the data in the day-to-day culture. So that's the difference. I was talking to one airline, I think the other day. They're saying that, oh, we have a head of data role. So, and it was like, yes, but you will achieve limited success with that role. Okay, that person can take you into the cloud, but how about the data monetization? Or have you thought of the revenue streams when your planes are not flying, especially in the current revenue scenario? And to that extent, I don't think that head of data or a senior manager level person can drive that mandate. For that, it's a change in the business strategy. As I said, that if you want to become truly data centric or truly data driven, then you need to have that mandate saying that, okay, now I need to have an alternative revenue streams for an airline because my planes are not flying because of this COVID. So what is that? So you need to have a CXO level staff to drive that culture. So, and it will be a vast change, because I have seen people in the airlines who have been working in the airline for 15, 20 years. They have really good depth of experience. And I say it's very good because you think and eat about airlines. But my mandate, or you can say my experience, is more broader level. I may not be looking into your revenue management or your commercial revenue to that deeper extent, but since I work across different industries like finance and insurance and airlines and telco, so I can combine the synergies and build different revenue streams for you
Mm.
with your data which you are missing at that time. So that is the, you can say, the mandate. If somebody has that mandate, then He can do vast changes. And to tell you the truth, there was an article on LinkedIn which I read saying that the actual value of the loyalty program is more than the value of the airlines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically how you make your data work for you.
Yeah.
And it is happening. It is happening. I've seen some airlines who are actually really utilizing their loyalty data
Yeah.
to generate revenue.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think there's that sort of general growth and maturity of how people use data analytics in their organizations. There's still some that are obviously on the sort of start of their journey, but I would say sort of the majority have sort of made pretty strong advancements. Even if you just look at the number of chief data officers that exist across Middle East and Africa and Australia as well, I know is growing quite nicely. One of the things I wanted to ask you, you sort of started talking about it, is, you become a data-driven organization. And it's one of those things that organizations can say about themselves: we're data driven, we're data centric, etc. And there's a long sort of path to get there, which I think almost we want to work backwards in this conversation to that point. But how does a company know they're data driven? When do you get to that point to say we're a totally data driven organization? Because I always sort of argue that, if you've got 10 departments in your organization and 9 of those really use data a lot, but there's one that doesn't, are you completely a data driven organization? You say the sum of the parts doesn't really add up to that, you'd say no. So how have you gone about in other organizations, or sort of in your own mind, getting to that point where you can actually say we are a data driven organization? How do you know? How do you measure that?
So I think it's a very good question, because at different maturity levels, this question means a different thing.
Yeah.
And to me, a real data-driven organization is that where you can put a number on the data, and on the terms of asset value, or in terms of the that this is how much we are earning from this data we have. And and then again, which I said previously, was that if we know that data is driving our business strategy. So if I look at my sales number and I say, okay, this is my opportunity to upsell and cross sell to a customer, and this is what my customer value right now. And if I do upselling and cross selling, this is how I can increase my customer value. So I'm looking at data. So I'm looking at the customer data. I'm looking at my products data, and I can see that how I can combine those products and customer to increase the upselling and cross selling. On if you reach at that level where you are looking at the data to drive that strategy, yeah, then you can say, okay, I expect about 10% increase in my customer value within 6 months to 1 year. Then you are driving your strategy on the basis of the data you got. Yeah, you got a member value, which is, or customer value, which is giving you probably, let's say, $100 a year. And then by looking at the numbers and by looking at your product portfolio, and then you can say, okay, by this thing, what I can say that I can target extra 10% from the existing customer base. And then you can say, okay, this is giving me 10% revenue, and this is coming from the data I got. And this is where probably would like to see that yes, you are really operationalizing your data and you are monetizing your data to generate extra value. And that's across the board for mainly from B2C organizations. And then there is something around B2B, that what you can do is like how you can leverage synergies around your data, and then how you can partner with the various organizations which are not in your domain, who are not essentially competing with you, but to generate a revenue or to reduce the cost. And that's the real thing that you can generate. And the example I gave you was right now from the insurance industry, that how you put a estimate a member value and how you can increase that. Probably in an airline industry, the use case I have is that, let's say that how much of your um, sales are coming by credit card payments. Yeah, let's say if it's an international airline, then probably their number will be running in billions. And then you know that in every credit card payment you pay about 1.5 to 2% to the issuer, to the bank. So if you're looking at saving that 1.5 to 2.5%, that money that will run in about 150 to $200 million a year in savings. So have you thought about using your data to crunch the numbers and saying that how can I save those 200 millions? Now you reach that level, then you are automatically data driven. Then now data is making you think that based on these numbers, I can save this much money or I can generate this that much revenue. So that is, to me, is the data driven culture. And
Okay.
that depends on the people. That depends on the people. It's not a technology thing. That depends on the people who really wants to make use of data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good sort of link to my next point in question is that all the people that I speak to that attend our conferences, a lot of the literature that you read, the technology is, in a way, the easy part. It's really just an
Hmm.
enabler to
Yes.
data-driven culture, being, making your decisions based on the insights that you get from the analytics. But, and this was in a conversation I had with Emmanuel from Standard Bank yesterday, is really how do you get people to that point where they are consistently using the insights that come from the data. There's no point having a great, data warehouse, clean data,
Dashboard or
great
platform. Yeah.
models, great dashboards, real-time analytics, etc. if no one's actually using it. So how do you go about guiding the organization, the people that are not the data team, on that journey towards really using data and insights to be better at what their jobs are requiring of them?
Again, it comes to the point that what is in it for me? So in data, I normally say that for data team, it's like an iceberg syndrome where you see what, I mean, probably 20% is on the top of water, but every 80% is about underwater. So yes, there is a lots of hard work that is done in implementing the platform and driving that strategy and reach at a level where you have a single version of truth. Yeah, but that at the end of the day, technology is just an enabler. So to bringing people to make use of the data is to, showcase the value that it can bring to them, because as I said, that's the people who are very much engrossed in one industry, probably they are not able to think out of the box, in the sense that if I combine this, like example I gave you for the credit card revenue or the fees that you pay on credit card. So if you combine that and say that, okay, I can save you 100 millions or a 200 millions a year, would you look at the data?
Mm.
Everybody will jump into it. And the example I gave around upselling and cross selling, okay, if I tell you that we can increase your revenue on 10% on y to y basis, would you start collaborating with us? So again, then it says that what is in it for me? So if they see the value in collaborating with you, they will come to you, and then automatically that will give you a chance to showcase more use cases. Not everything will be successful, it's just that you have to try. And again, it's the fail fast culture. You build use cases. If those are for value, build on top of that. If those are of not no value, drop them in between. There's no harm in failing. So it's a fail fast culture. And this is where actually the cloud adoption has driven lots of you can say value adoption, because you know that if some use cases are not working, you immediately shut down that, and then you wind up your platform, and then build some other VMs, or to build your more use cases, and build up the infrastructure accordingly. So this is where, well, like that, how do you take everybody along? How would you show them the value of what you are doing? And then potentially when everybody sees that yes, they got some really good business motives, they automatically join you. that's
I
that's what
mean,
my
yeah.
feeling is.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And if someone can be a lot better at their job, deliver on their targets using the data, um,
Hmm.
theory says that they should jump on that. How do you sort of go about identifying those use cases? Because I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast are quite early on in their journey towards being data driven. They might have just really started out, and the people that are running those data programs or coming to do the data programs are quite technically minded. Um, how do you go? What sort of tips would you give them, I guess, to go and sort of identify the use cases across the organization? Because not everybody's got that business literacy. We talk a lot on the show about data literacy, for non-data people, but what about business literacy for sort of business people? How do you go about and say, these are
Communicate.
the use cases? Like, this is how I'm going to help you.
Communicate. Communicate is the key word. So basically, go and talk to the people within the organization, outside the organization, understand their problems. Then automatically the use cases will come out of it. Not all the use cases will be cost or value driven. Some of the use cases will be efficiency driven. For example, let's say that you are working on 20 Excel sheets and it takes you 2 days to combine that, and by putting a semantic layer or using any reporting tool on top of that, you can do that job in 2 hours. So that you are increasing the efficiency. So once you start, so basically the key communication is the key. Go and talk to the people within or outside your organization, and generate some from your past experience or whatever, from your cross industry experience, learn through that and say that, okay, this is what I can do, or this is what I understand your problem. The first thing is be a good listener. So try to understand that what are their pain points, slowly address their pain points, starting with the efficiency, then revenue generation, and then probably embedding that in everyday culture. So
Yeah.
yeah, so communicate is the key for me.
Yeah, I think so. And I think one of the things that always comes up is, that skill, like what skill set does the data person need to exhibit, especially let's say at a chief data officer level or whatever it may be. You need to understand the technical side of, the data platform, the data ecosystem and life cycle within the organization, but you need to be a good listener, communicator, people person as well, which is not something that everybody's got. But I think people are now starting to make a bit more sort of inroads into being able to do that.
And these forums like yourselves help. I mean, generating ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
People will see that, say, okay, and okay, and especially the forums or the conferences or webinars, these are happening. People tend to get some ideas.
Yeah, yeah. And what are your sort of thoughts then? I have been having this sort of conversation with people for a while. They say, well, how do we get people to really buy into that? You can show that it's, what's in it for me. I see the value, but they end up not using it. They're going back to how they used to do business. How do you get those business people from a sales environment or a loyalty program environment actually involved in the model development? Because I think if you've got that level of co-creation, they have a lot more ownership of it. How deep do you go into getting parts of business really deeply involved in developing the models that they will actually use?
See, the biggest issue or biggest adoption issue that I have seen over the years is that most of the big data projects have been technology centric rather than business centric. And what happens is that, oh, because everybody is going on big data and because everybody is going to cloud, so we should be going to that. Yeah. Obviously, it gives some efficiencies and cost savings to the IT and technical people, which is good. But then the question comes that now the platform is there. So how do you make people start using it, or how do you increase the adoption? So this is where probably you need to, understand the pain points. And setting up analytics platform in the cloud will not do the job, because if they don't really understand the importance of it, or if they don't really know how to leverage it, so basically then it's probably a matter of a little bit of hand holding. So in an RSE, I'm proposing to set up a center of excellence,
Mm-hmm.
and which is a federated model which I'm proposing. It's not everything is centralized and not everything is decentralized. So it's a centralized, you can say it's a COE, but then all the business units, all the folks from different business units will come and work with COE on time to time basis. Then they will understand that this is what this data platform can do for them, and then they will go back to their business units and propagate the value. So basically they will become our advocates, the data advocates within their business unit.
Yeah.
And then this is how will you provide the data literacy. So it's not only we are talking, but their own people, the people from the business units are talking themselves. Okay, I got this much efficiency gains, I got this much revenue gains. So they become our advocates within their business unit. So this is how gradually you increase the data literacy, and this is gradually how you increase the data platform adoption.
And is one of the end goals of that really an environment of self-service analytics, self-service BI, where people are able to pull in data in sort of a curated and governed sort of framework or sandbox, if you will, and be able to actually, model the data themselves and come up with their own insights because they've got that level of literacy. They understand why
Yeah.
they're doing it, and then they sort of go out and actually do it themselves. Is that kind of your end goal, is where you're doing less but providing more, if you know what I mean?
So think of that. Normally, I give an example. Let's say that you're building a house and you get a water connection. The council comes and they give you water connection right at your doorstep. And that is what the data team does. So we are giving you the data which is governed and trustworthy and timely. And how you do the plumbing in your house depends on you.
Mm.
Now, there are certain business units who are quite proficient in, driving their own insights. Yes, you can take that connection and how you do the plumbing up to you. You can build the golden layer or semantic layer yourself. But then there are people who need help. So then this is where you take them from the bronze layer to the silver layer to the golden or semantic layer. Then, and you can do that. And that's the purpose. So what my idea is that you should be ready to cater to different sorts of customers within the same organization, because within the same organization some people are really data proficient, they can write their SQL code, they can write their codes, but some people are say, okay, please provide me these status reports which I can see in every morning getting refreshed. So what I'm saying is that you should be able to cater to all sorts of audiences, because if you say that, oh, I will do only this and not that, of course based on the resource constraint, then probably you say, okay, but I would need at this level of engagement from you. If you can provide me, I will start using that. So that is where, to me, the level of self service is different for a different business unit or for different organization, depending on their maturity level.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but ultimately, yes, that's the semantic layer is the ultimate goal that you want to reach.
Yeah. Okay, good. And I think maybe what I'd like you to share with us now, as we sort of get to the close of the episode, is maybe summarizing what we've spoken about today into sort of 3 tips for those organizations that have, relatively recently started their journey towards being data driven, or maybe, a year in, but still have a long way to go. What are some of the tips that you'd give them? Maybe your top 3 tips for things for them to focus on to really reach that point of being truly data driven.
The first thing is that try to understand the importance that what data can or cannot do for you. And cannot is also important.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And because we say that the data is the new gold or data is the new oil, but you have to, you can't put the crude oil into your car.
Yeah.
So there is a process of refining it. So understand the whole process, that this is what data can and cannot do for you, and try to build some use cases that will derive your monetization of that data. And the key for that is that how you listen to people, how you communicate with the people, and ultimately and invest in a stable cloud technology which is robust enough, which is elastic enough, and then provide people some enough tools so that they can manage the self-service analysis on that. So basically 3 things is, first thing is about data literacy, the second thing is about communication, and the third thing is about technology.
Okay. I mean, I think that cloud conversation is something where we could spend another half an hour, I guess. Everybody's sort of on this journey to cloud. A lot of people don't really understand it. There's obviously some security concerns, which is kind of, for the most part, taken care of, actually, because they are pretty secure. So I think that's maybe something we can dig into in the future, Harjot, is another conversation around the journey.
Sure. And on security, I would like to say that, in any organization, how many security people you have? Maybe 5, 10, 20, 30. And look at the cloud, and how many people do you think Microsoft or AWS would have employed in the
Yeah.
security?
Yeah.
In thousands.
Yeah.
So it's their bread and butter. So
Yeah.
they got armies of people. So this fear that, okay, cloud is not secure,
Yeah.
your data center is more secure, it's a bit unfounded for me.
Mm.
Yes, but there are regulatory requirements that your data cannot leave your country, which is a local data localization law. Yes, you must respect that. But thinking that the cloud is less secure than your data center is probably
Yeah.
it's an unfounded fear for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just that incorrect perception. So, Harjot, before I let you go, thank you so much, first of all, for joining the show and sharing your thoughts. But maybe you kind of landed in one of the countries where, and you'll know this from Sydney, where the coffee culture is massive. I didn't really drink coffee, to be honest, before I moved to Australia. Now I'm, can't go past a good coffee shop without at least buying a coffee and probably their beans as well at home. So maybe you can just share with us a little bit around your sort of relationship with tea or coffee and how it fills your day.
I'm more of a green tea person rather than coffee.
Yeah.
So I prefer green tea. And then, in fact, when I was working in Sydney, I had a colleague from China. He would have his probably one big bottle. He will have some green tea leaves in there, and then he will kept on drinking throughout the day. Yeah, so I'm more of a green tea person or a black tea person rather than coffee.
Yeah.
But yes, some warm beverages are always welcome,
Yeah.
especially in this weather.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Harjot, thanks so much. We'll hopefully catch up soon, but good to see you again. Keep well.